In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, to whom we all have to turn back. Honorable listeners and respectable audience, you know that we have started a series of linguistics. In linguistics, we have covered the chapter, and it was about morphology. Listeners and audience, we have started the new chapter in linguistics, and it is about syntax. That syntax, it is the study of the structure of sentence. That how sentence is structured, how sentence is organized, how sentence is formed and shaped. Today, as yesterday we defined syntax, we are talking about meanings and phrases today in syntax. Previously, whenever we are teaching to the students about traditional grammar and traditional thing, so we use phrases and define phrases in this way. That what is phrase? Like the traditional definition of phrase is that it is a group of words which does not have a complete meaning. That is called phrase. And whenever we are talking about a noun phrase, we would say that it is a group of words which talk about a noun is called noun phrase. However, in syntax, we will define phrase according to the syntax and syntactic rules. So now we are talking about meanings and phrases today. That how we derive meaning syntactically from a phrase, even from a sentence, and what is phrase in syntax. So, how to know about phrase syntactically? Whenever we are talking about a phrase in syntax, so we define phrase in this way: that phrase is a group of words, or it is a chunk of word, or it is a string of words which can replaced by another word or a single word. I'm repeating. When we're talking about a phrase syntactically or in the way of linguistic, we can say that phrase is a group of words which can move from one place and to another place. And phrase is a group of words which can replace by a word or a group of words. Okay. For example, I'm writing a sentence. Aslam writes a letter. So now listeners and audience, you see in this example, a letter, it is what? It is a phrase. It is a group of words. Okay. You may say Aslam writes a letter to his brother. Aslam writes a letter to his brother. So it is what? It is a phrase, a letter to his brother. Another thing is that, as I said, that phrase is a group of words. It can be replaced by a single word. Syntactically or in a broad sense, how to know a phrase? To know a phrase is that it can be replaced by a single word. For example, Aslam writes, just you may say Aslam writes a letter. Or you may also say Aslam writes letter. So that's why it is the understanding or recognition of a phrase that you may replace it by a single word. Another example. I saw a man. I saw a man. Yes. So here this is a phrase. I saw a man. So here a man is a phrase. As I told you in the definition, that a phrase can move from one place to another. So moment is there. How? For example, I can place. I can change the place of the praise. I saw, for example. I saw. So here, this was replaced. This was moved actually. So this was moved. And in the above sentence, it was replaced. Just a single word was written. Aslam writes a letter to his brother, or Aslam writes a letter. However, we can replace a phrase by a single word, and we can also move a phrase from one place to another. Now, listeners and audience, when we are talking about its detail, there is a question. And the question is that a single sentence may stand for two different sentence structure, each having different meaning. There is a single sentence which can stand for two different sentence structure, and each sentence having different meanings. I'm going to explain this point. For example, I'm writing a sentence. I was reading a letter to Aslam. Now, listeners and audience, you see, I was reading a letter to Aslam. As I said it, a single sentence may stand for two different sentence structure. First of all, I'm talking about two different sentence structure. I was reading a letter to Aslam. Here, this sentence can have two different structure, and it also has two different meanings. For example, let me derive two meanings from this. I was reading a letter to Aslam. One meaning, it conveys that someone has sent a letter to me, and I was reading this letter to myself. I'm repeating. Someone has sent a letter to me, and I was reading this letter to Aslam. So two meanings are there. I'm repeating to avoid confusion. I was reading a letter to Aslam. However, this letter was sent to me by someone. This is one meaning. Another meaning is that I was reading a letter. Someone has sent a letter to Aslam, and I was reading that letter to Aslam loudly. So I think now the meaning is clear that this sentence has two meanings. Now, whenever a sentence has two meanings, and we call it ambiguity. Ambiguity means that when there is dual meanings in a sentence. One is meaning ambiguity in a word, another is structural ambiguity. So this is called structural ambiguity because there is ambiguity in the whole sentence. The one meaning is that I was reading a letter to Aslam. It means that the letter was sent to me and I was reading it to myself. And Aslam was with me, so that's why I was reading loudly to him. One meaning. Another meaning is that someone has sent a letter to Aslam, so I was reading loudly to him. So two meanings are there. However, come back to the structure now. That how this sentence has two structures. How this sentence has two structure and why a sentence can have two different meanings. First of all, I will come to theoretical answer and then I will practically explain it. Listeners and audience, actually, a sentence has two different meanings. It is because of what? It is because of two different structures in a sentence. What are the two different structures? For example, each and every word has, in a sentence, has organization. So because of the organization of words, because of the grouping of words into each other, a string of words and their grouping to each other and their different ways. That is called, that is the way that sentence has two different meanings. Now the question arises that how a sentence has two different structures. Let me write it. For example, I was reading a letter to Aslam. The first structure is this one. I was reading a letter to Aslam. This is the first structure of the sentence. Another structure is I was reading a letter to Aslam. So there is another structure. See? One is the whole structure. I was reading a letter to Aslam. This is the whole structure, a complete structure. It means it represents one phrase just only. But here I divided and actually broke the phrase into two ways, into two methods, into two constituents, you may say. So that's why it has another structure. So in the first sentence, it has just one phrase, but in the next sentence, I divided the first phrase into two portions. So that's why due to the different structures and division, and you may say the constituents and grouping of phrases to each other, that's why the sentence has two different meanings and two different structures. Hope that this topic is clear to you.